There we go. Well, thank everyone for being with us this evening. If you will, go ahead and open up your workbooks, or I guess the work pamphlets, over to Ecclesiastes. We're in chapters 7 and 9 today. We're continuing on in the worksheet for lessons 7 and 8. Excuse me, not 7 and 9, 7 and 8. And we're actually in the middle of the point on page 6 and 7 with Ecclesiastes 1 through 9. Okay. We are in lesson 8, Ecclesiastes 8. I think we got up to verse 4 last week. And so just kind of some reminder here through this. It says there, beginning in verse 1, "Who is as the wise man, and who knoweth the interpretation of a thing? A wise man's wisdom maketh his face to shine, and the boldness of his face shall be changed." In other words, they're asked a question, they're going to have boldness or a stern face trying to figure out, okay, it's going to reflect on their face that they are trying to figure out how to answer the question. Whereas a wise man, his face lightens up and he's like, okay, I know how to answer this. You see, he'll be able to do that. Verse 2, "I counsel thee to keep the king's commandments, and that in regard of the oath of God." In other words, you got to keep the king's commands. You got to follow the oath of your oaths to God. Verse 3, "Be not hasty to go out of his sight." That's the idea of leaving the king. And that some translations say leaving the king. And that's the idea of basically abandoning him. Going away from him, no longer being on his side. It says sight, of course, but that's the idea of leaving him, no longer being on his side. Basically, disloyalty is the idea. And it says, as it continues on, "Be not hasty to go out of the king's sight. Stand not in an evil thing, for he doeth whatsoever pleaseth him." The king can decide to execute the one who is disloyal. You continue on, verse 4, "Where the word of the king is, there is power. And who may say unto him, What doest thou?" In other words, the king has authority. What he speaks has authority. We talked about this with 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 10 through 18. Talked about all that the king was going to do when Israel got their first king, Saul. Just before that, they had Samuel. And Samuel said to the people, he said, "Look, here is what's going to happen. Your men, your sons, they're going to be drafted into wars if you do this. All kinds of things are going to happen. He's going to start taking crops, and he's going to start charging taxes, and he's going to just do all kinds of things." And he says here, guess what's going to happen? All that's going to happen there back in 1 Samuel chapter 8. And that's exactly what happened. It points to the king having authority. And that's what we're seeing here, though, when it comes to this. The king has authority when he speaks, which is why when the king speaks, oftentimes people fall silent in order to hear what he says. But you continue on from there, verse 5 then. "Whoso keepeth the commandment shall feel no evil thing, and a wise man's heart discerneth both time and judgment." You go over to page 8. Page 8 continues on this outline of this chapter. Page 8. "If one keeps the king's commands," that's the first part, "he won't be punished." You see, if you're loyal to the king and you follow what he says, you're not going to be punished, is the point. The king's not going to punish you. Again, and this is talking about with kings that are doing what is right. You had some kings that did what was wrong. For example, if you read about the Roman emperors who were in that way a king, you might say, they would actually order some of their own family and some of their closest friends and allies to commit suicide to prove their loyalty. Matter of fact, if I recall, even we sometimes talk about Nero, who was really the first emperor to impose persecution on Christians among the Roman emperors. What he would end up doing when he did that, but around that same time that he started doing that and just kind of going all wild on things, it's interesting because if you study Nero, it's like it was just a sudden burst of just crazy stuff going on. But one of the things he did was he ordered his old tutor, his teacher, his mentor, you might say, to commit suicide to prove his loyalty. You see, that was one of the things he did. you see. And so some of that happened. If I recall, I think even Herod the Great did that as well. If you study history, I'd have to look up on that again. But a lot of kings did that. But what it's talking about here is talking about a king that is doing what is right in this regard. Again, if a person keeps that king's commands, he won't be punished. Not, as long as the king is doing what's right, you see. Letter G, of course, is going to talk about that second half of verse 5 into verse 7. Let's actually go ahead and read verses 5 through 7 together. That first part. Whoso keepeth the commandment shall feel no evil thing. And a wise man's heart discerneth both time and judgment, because to every purpose there is time and judgment. Again, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 6, because to every purpose there is time and judgment. Therefore, the misery of man is great upon him, for he knoweth not that which shall be, for who can tell him when it shall be? He makes this point throughout Ecclesiastes. This is the idea that there is a time and place for things to be done. A wise man may know the proper time and place to question the king in a respectful way. A wise king may know the proper time and place to go to battle, charge taxes, ask advice, things like that. Misery, it's interesting, he uses that phrase, misery of man is great upon him. Likely a reference to having to postpone and delay things because it's not the right time. Though one may want to get it over with, this may be seen by the verbiage in verse 7, for he knoweth not that which shall be. For who can tell him when it shall be? In other words, man can't tell the future. Over and over again, he makes this point in Ecclesiastes especially. Man can't tell the future. Man doesn't know what's going to come after him, you see. And that's what he's talking about here. Man doesn't know what's going to happen. And so things have to be situated. Again, there is, what does he say there repeatedly? There is a time and judgment. Again, that's what's meant by that phrase. There is time and judgment, because to every purpose, verse 6, there is time and judgment. You have to be ready, is the point. You continue reading through this. It says in verse 8 tells us, there is no man that hath power over the Spirit to retain the spirits. Some people read that and they say that's talking about anger. Some people say that's talking about retaining our spirits, retaining us from getting angry. That's not what it's talking about. It might be better translated wind here. Sometimes the word translated spirit can be translated wind. And so if this is talking about wind, well, yeah, you can't restrain the wind. You see, the wind goes wherever it wants. There's no way to do it, you see. If this is talking about our spirit and being angry and things like that, what he's saying is it's impossible to control your temper. That wouldn't make sense. Again, this is talking about wind. You can't restrain the wind. If something's going to happen, it's going to happen. The wind will go wherever it's going to go, you see. And so again, he says, there is no man that hath power over the spirit or wind to retain the wind. Therefore hath he power in the day of death, and there is no discharge in that war. Neither shall wickedness deliver those that are given to it. Looking at all of that, you see some of this stuff here. This is the idea of retaining. If you go over to page 8 in the outline on letter H, page 8, letter H, retaining the spirit or the wind, and that's probably the word that better translated here, and controlling one's death. You can't control the day of your death. If you're going to die on a day, what he's saying here, you cannot keep from dying. That's what he's pointing out in all of this. You cannot keep yourself from dying, because eventually you're going to die. Eventually everyone in this room, if the Lord doesn't return before then, everyone in this room is going to be dead and buried. You need to understand that. Eventually everyone here is going to be dead. We can't keep it from happening. Some people have been trying to avoid this for years. They're even trying to come up with all kinds of technology to keep people from dying. Maybe transfer a person's brain or mind into a machine and things like that. Just ridiculous stuff. You can't do it. One day, we're all going to be dead. And that's what he's pointing out here. You can't control the wind, and in the same way, you cannot control the fact that one day you will die. And he's talking about battle. It's interesting. He talks about that here. He brings up battles and things like that. There's no discharge in that war. Neither shall wickedness deliver those that are given to it. Some people think that they can prolong their days with wickedness, doing wicked things, betraying people, trying to extend their life in certain ways. You can't. He's actually going to bring that up later in somewhere around chapter 9 and 10. He's going to bring that up in a little more verbiage. He'll say basically that a wicked man cannot, while a wicked man might be able to prolong his days, he cannot avoid death. That's it, the whole point there. Again, if you look at letter H here on page 8, number 2, you cannot keep from dying. Medicine may prolong your days. Committing wickedness or evil may prolong your days, but you will eventually die. Everyone that tried to commit evil to prolong their days 1,000 years ago, they're not alive today, you see. Everyone that was taking medicine 1,000 years ago, they're not alive today, you see. Everyone that might take medicine today, they're not going to be alive 1,000 years from now if the Lord doesn't return before that. If the earth exists another 1,000 years, they're not going to be alive 1,000 years from now. You see. Again, the whole point is, again, going back to one day people will die and it cannot be avoided. The wind cannot be stopped. The wind cannot be catched. Neither can the day of death be stopped. He continues on with verse 9. All this I have seen and applied my heart unto every work that is done under the sun. There is a time wherein one man ruleth over another to his own hurt. That's kind of an odd verse right there. Ruleth over another to his own hurt. Basically, this is the idea of an oppressive leader or an oppressive king. Again, kings are in the context here. So there might be an oppressive king, a king that's super oppressive over people, things like that. So if you look at letter I on page 8, sometimes leaders are oppressive. Sometimes rulers are. But it will only hurt them in the end. Eventually, they're going to have to answer for being an oppressive ruler. They're going to have to answer for being a wicked ruler at some point. It may be in this life. It's definitely going to happen when Judgment Day comes, you see. And I think Solomon understood that. Any questions or comments on those first 9 verses? He continues on then into chapter 8, verse 10. Let's go ahead and read verses 10 through 14. It says, And so I saw the wicked buried, who had come and gone from the place of the holy, and they were forgotten in the city where they had so done. This is also vanity. Because sentence, this is an interesting verse right here. It says, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily. Therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged. This is actually the verse I was talking about. It's here in chapter 8, verse 12. Yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear God, which fear before him. But it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he feareth not before God. There is a vanity which is done upon the earth, and there be just men who unto it happen according to the work of the wicked. Again, there be wicked men to whom it happeneth according to the work of the righteous. I said that this also is vanity. Again, that word vanity meaning futile or useless. Trying to understand all of this. This is talking about the wicked and judgment here. That's what we see at the top of page 9 on point number 5. The wicked and judgment. Chapter 8, verses 10 through 14 talks about this. It's just interesting that he goes into this topic here, but kind of just breaking this up here. Verse 10, And so I saw the wicked buried, who had come and gone from the place of the holy, and they were forgotten in the city. Notice what happens. The wicked, they live, they die, and then they're buried, you see. And then they're forgotten. He made that point, both the righteous and the wicked have that fate. He made that point all the way back in chapter 2, when he said, one fate befalls them all, and there is no lasting remembrance of either one, as with the wise man or the fool, you see. When you're looking at this topic here, he says, look, the wicked, they die and they're forgotten. How many wicked people that ever lived on the face of the earth do you think we have the names written of from 1,000 years ago? Think about that. Every thief. Do we have the name of every thief that lived back in 1000 AD? No. Do we have the name of every thief that lived 500 years ago? No. They die, they're buried, they're forgotten, you see. And that's what he's talking about here. You know, the wicked man is doing all this stuff, but guess what? He's going to die and he's going to be forgotten, you see. He thinks he's finding purpose in life, and whatever he's doing that's wicked, he can't. He's just going to die, be buried, be forgotten. Verse 11, because sentence is against an evil work is not executed speedily. Therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know that it will be well with them that fear God, which fear before him. Just a couple interesting verses right here. Verse 11 shows that, this is what happens today. How long does it take for a criminal to finally be executed if he's murdered someone? Years, months. Yeah, 5 years. He could be going to jail at the age of 20 and finally getting the chair at age 70. You see, that's how long it takes. You see, sometimes they get away with it, if you will. They keep moving on, and they commit the crime and they get away with it because nobody sees them, nobody spots them. They just keep repeating it over and over again. Oh, if I can keep doing it and get away with it, don't have to go to prison, all kinds of things. Guess what? I'm avoiding prison. I'm avoiding being caught. I don't even have a wanted poster of me going anywhere. So if I can do that, I can just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. You see, I can rob bank after bank after bank because I know what to do to be able to accomplish that. You see, that's what this person's thinking here. He's thinking since he can get away with it and not get caught, he can keep doing it. You see, he can keep going on and doing it. And then, of course, verse 12, though a sinner, that's interesting. I think this connects just with that very thought. Verse 12, though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged. He can try and keep himself alive by doing wicked over and over and over and over again. Betrayal. This could be robbery. This could be all kinds of things. He's doing wickedness over and over and over again. Though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear God, which fear before him. In other words, he's saying, the wicked may prolong their days in their wickedness, but notice what he says there, the righteous, those that do good, those that fear God, it will be well for them. That's a reflection thinking to eternity right there. You see, that's an interesting point right there. We sometimes talk about the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they'll sometimes take passages here in Ecclesiastes out of context. Talks about going to the grave and things like that, and how they say, well, that's the end. Well, no. They can't provide a reasonable explanation to some of these other verses that say, it will be well for them that fear God. Wait a minute. Is that a guarantee that everyone that fears God is going to have joy in this life then? Because if there's no life that comes after the grave, if there's no life after death, then it just doesn't make any sense. You see, it doesn't match up because, again, this is a reflection looking toward eternity here. Again, it will be well for them that fear God, you see. And that's that's pointing toward eternity. Even though the wicked may prolong their days by doing wickedness. When all is said and done, those that fear God will rejoice. They'll have happiness. It will be well for them that fear God. Any questions or comments on that? He continues on here, verse 13. But it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he feareth not before God. In other words, look, he's going to end up eventually getting caught. He may be able to do it for a time, prolong his days for a time, but when all's said and done, he's going to get caught. Either when eternity comes up and he dies and he answers before God, or even in this life, criminals tend to be caught. Not all the time. You have people like Jack the Ripper who people don't know what happened to him. But with even today, people tend to be caught, you see, with those very few exceptions. Verse 14, there is a vanity. Verse 14, there is a vanity which is done upon the earth, that there be just men, unto whom it happeneth according to the work of the wicked. Again, there be wicked men, to whom it happeneth according to the work of the righteous. I said that this also is vanity. Think about that right there. This also is vanity. When he's talking about all of this here, we see that he's saying that time and chance happen to people. That's the overall point here. What happens is you have those that are wicked and good things happen to them. It looks like they're being blessed by God. It happeneth to them according to the work of the righteous. It looks like they're pleasing, they've been pleasing to God because good things are happening to them. And then, of course, you get people who are righteous and it's happening to them according to what it says here, the way of the wicked, the works of the wicked, like as if bad things are happening to the righteous. Therefore, maybe God's not on their side. It looks like that from certain perspectives. But he's saying, of course, that it's just time and chance. Time and chance happen to people. Good things happen to bad people. Bad things happen to good people. Just look at Job. We've talked about this a little bit. But when you go to Job, I've been listening to a friend of mine. He's been doing he does a podcast, and he's been just going chapter by chapter through the book of Job and just examining all the phrases and statements that are made by Job and his friends. And it's interesting because when you read through it, sometimes Job's friends say stuff that's true. But at other times, a good hunk of the time, they're saying stuff that's not true. Matter of fact, in Job, one of his friends would even make the statement, when have we ever seen the righteous go hungry? The righteous go hungry a lot. But he's like, well, when have we ever seen the righteous go hungry? It's kind of like a rhetorical question he's asking, saying, the righteous never go hungry. Bad things never happen to the righteous. You see. Wait a minute, I'm pretty sure there were righteous people back during the Great Depression who were going hungry. You see. If that's the case, you just probably went and said that everybody living in the Great Depression probably was not righteous then. That would be the accusation, or at least maybe not accusation, but if you take it to its logical conclusion, what that kind of statement would be. But that's not what he's saying. That's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches sometimes bad things happen to good people, and sometimes good things happen to bad people. You see. And so that's the overall point from those verses through verse 14 there, is that happens. Any questions or comments on that? You continue on with verses 15 through 17 of Ecclesiastes chapter 8. It says, Then I commended mirth, because a man hath no better thing under the sun than to eat and to drink and to be merry. For that shall abide with him of his labor the days of his life, which God giveth him under the sun. When I applied mine heart to know wisdom, and to see the business that is done upon the earth, for also there is that neither day nor light seeth sleep with his eyes. Then I beheld all the work of God, that a man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. Because though a man labor to seek it out, yet he shall not find it. Yea, farther, though a wise man think to know it, yet shall he not be able to find it. Two big points he's given here as the conclusion to chapter 8. Here, as we're going through this, it's interesting. He's pointing out time after time First of all, he's pointed this out from verse 15. Does verse 15 sound similar to any other statements we've seen in Ecclesiastes? He's brought this up actually a couple different times. He said, look, this is exactly, he says, look, there is nothing better, again, no better thing under the sun, again, what's taking place on earth, than to eat and to drink and to be merry, for that shall abide with him of his labor the days of his life, which God giveth him under the sun. This reflects back to life with God, enjoying life with God. Going back to what he said back in chapter 2, for who can eat and who can have enjoyment without him? For the one who is righteous in his sight, he has given wisdom and knowledge and joy. You see, goes right back to that. Eat, drink, and be merry, labor, have enjoyment, and all of this with God. You see. He's bringing that up again here in chapter 8. He's brought it up in chapter 5. He's brought it up back in chapter 2. And he's bringing it up again here. And so just kind of noticing all of this, you have that big point there. Life with God is good. That's on the bottom of the page there, point number 6, letter A. It's interesting. When you read, you kind of contrast that a little bit with this next point. Because he's saying in verse 16 and 17, people try to find out what God is doing. They try to find out what God is. Just notice verse 17 again. Then I beheld all the work of God, that a man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. Verses 16 and 17 put together are talking about this. They're talking about trying to find out what is God doing here. What is God's purpose in all of this? What is God got plans for something to happen tomorrow or the next day? Or does God have special plans for my future in regards to things going on here on earth? Not in terms of, heaven and eternity, but talking about things like this. And he's saying here, you cannot understand everything. You can't understand everything that's going on under the sun. You can't understand if God is doing something. You can't understand if time and chance are happening. You see, that's the whole point. Some people, they say, well, bad things are going on in my life. It must be God punishing me. I don't know what's going on in that person's life when they say that. It could be. It could also be that it's just time and chance happening. You see, we can't know. And that's what he's pointing out here. We can't know what's going on. In the sense of just the fact that we don't know if God is controlling things. We don't know if this is just time and chance happening sometimes. Sometimes we can know. Sometimes we can't. You see. That's the overall point. Any questions or comments on that? You continue on then, just looking at the conclusion then of this chapter with page 10. Page 10, just the conclusion here, just looking through chapters 7 and 8. We've seen this over the past few weeks. Again, he talks about several things. A good reputation, wisdom and righteousness are good, but avoid self-righteousness. That's when he talked about do not be overly righteous and do not be overly wise. Why should you ruin yourself? That's the idea of self-righteousness right there. And self-wise. Arrogance. There you go. There you go. Like we talked about in the sermon this morning, or not this morning, Sunday morning, with Obadiah. You had people that were arrogant, you see. They had their wise men there in Obadiah, there in the nation of Edom. And he said he was going to destroy wise men from Edom, you see. Those wise men were wise in their own eyes, pretty much. That arrogance there. Wisdom, we see also number 4 there on page 10, to obey rulers. He makes that point throughout Ecclesiastes. Be loyal to rulers, obey them. Verse 5 or number 5 on the conclusion. Oppressive rulers and the wicked will die and be forgotten. He's made that point here just in this chapter. He talked about how those oppressive rulers will be punished. Things are going to happen to them. You look at number 6. One cannot avoid death. He's made that point about the wicked. The wicked will die. The wicked will die. The righteous will die. You see. Number 7, it will be good for those who fear God. In other words, for those who fear God, they have eternity in heaven awaiting them. You see, they have that to wait. They have that they're waiting for those who fear God. And then, of course, number 8, God gives enjoyment. God gives enjoyment to this life. Again, to the one who is good in his sight, he has given wisdom and knowledge and joy. We'll continue on with the next chapter. We'll only be able to get into the next few verses. I didn't think we were going to get this far. Where's my notes over here? Does anyone have a copy of lesson 9 and 10? No. I'll try. We won't get into the outlines then. I won't plan to get into the outlines, and we'll just. Oh, you got one? Okay. Do you have one, honey? No. Okay. We'll just get into the verses here, verses 1 through 12, and just kind of just reflect on them a little bit. Some introduction to these two chapters too. Again, Ecclesiastes 7 through 12, as we talked about, as we enter chapter 7. It's a section which many people believe is Solomon looking in the right direction, whereas previous chapters focused on things under the sun, focused on life and life without God and life with God. This seems to be Solomon shifting focus in the right direction in all of this. Especially, we've seen him talk about, avoiding being wicked and having loyalty to the king and things like that. We also see just a couple of things, summaries for the chapters 9 and 10 we're going to look at here between today, next week, and probably the following week. Chapter 9 points to the fact to remember that today matters. Chapter 10 gives us an examination of wisdom and folly. Chapter 11 and 12 are going to deal a lot with just various things. Chapter 11 we'll use the phrase, cast your bread upon the waters. And after you therewith, you'll find it after many days. The end of chapter 11 and even into chapter 12, it talks about remembering the Creator in the days of your youth. Remembering God is the point. Obeying God. And remember to obey Him. Remember to follow Him. Remember to fear Him, you see. And we'll see more of that in chapters 11 and 12. But in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, let's go ahead and read verses 11 through 12. We might make just a couple of points before we close tonight. But it says, for all this, notice this, for all this, he's thinking back to some of those things that we just talked about. In my heart, even for all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. No man knoweth either love or hatred by all that is before them. All things come alike to all. There is one event to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good and to the clean, and to the unclean, to him that sacrificeth and to him that sacrificeth not. As is the good, so is the sinner, and he that sweareth as he that feareth an oath. This is an evil thing of all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all. Yea, also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead. Just those first 3 verses there. What are you seeing them talking about? What's the overall point of verses 1 through 3 of Ecclesiastes 9? It happens to the righteous, it happens to the wicked. It happens to the one who will make an oath, one who won't make an oath. It happens. Everybody dies. There you go. The overall point of those verses, everybody's going to die. After this, they go to the dead. Everyone's going to be in the grave, is the whole point of that section there. And he continues on then into verse 4. For to him, if I can get this to work with me. For to him that is joined to all the living there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Neither have they any more a reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Just think about this. This is just telling us, look, while the living are alive, they can still change. They can still fix things. If they're a fool, they can change that, you see, and become a wise person. They can start doing things that are wise. They can fear God, you see. They can make that decision to fear God.
The dead can't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why he says a living dog is better than a dead lion. That's kind of interesting right there, that he would actually call people dogs. People call people dogs throughout the New Testament, but usually it's in the negative sense. Like when Peter talked about a dog returning to its own vomit. He's comparing people that are unrighteous, those who fall away, to dogs, you see. But interesting that Solomon would use that phrase here, likely referring to unrighteous people choosing not to serve God. They have a chance to repent. And again, a living dog is better than a dead lion. Lion's more powerful than a dog. You put the two of them together, the lion's going to kill the dog, you see. But again, it's better to be a live dog than a dead lion. Verse 5, for the living know they will die, but the dead know not anything. This isn't a Jehovah's Witness thing he's talking about here. He's saying they don't know what's going on earth. They don't know anything that keeps going on. Neither have they any more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Nothing's going to happen.
Believe in the resurrection.
Do what?
Jehovah's Witness, they don't believe with you.
No.
You're dead, you're dead.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
Close the door on them.
Yeah, they teach that. There might be another denomination that teaches that, but there's people out there, they say when you're dead, you're dead. So, yeah. Yep. And that's what they're saying. That's what people try to get from this text. That's what the Jehovah's Witnesses try to sometimes prove. The dead don't know anything. No, it just means they don't know anything going on here, you see.
Do they use the regular Bible?
No, they use something called if I recall correctly, it's called the New World Translation, which they've got all kinds of twists and turns in there. That some of the translating's okay, but a good hunk of it they're translating things the wrong way. Matter of fact, even in 1 John 1, they'll say, because they don't believe Jesus is God, they'll say, in the beginning is the Word, and the Word is with God, and the Word was a God. And they give it a small g there, just to try and, throw people off. That's not what the text says. It's not a small g. But anyways, yeah, that just a lot of things there in that New World Translation. But again, coming back here, when it comes to this, it's just saying that the dead don't know anything means they don't know what's going on here anymore. They're off in Hades right now, awaiting the resurrection and the judgment day. But he continues on here, verse 6, also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished. Neither have they any more a portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. Again, they're not going to have any money, you see. They're not going to have, they don't have money, the money's here. Money doesn't go with us when we die. Verse 7, go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. Again, life with God is what he's talking about here. Let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no ointment. Live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of thy life, of thy vanity, which he hath given thee under the sun, all the days of thy vanity, for that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou takest under the sun. Be happy, live righteously with God, live with your wife, and be happy with God that he's allowed that to happen, you see. We often talk about it like this. A phrase, I don't know if it gets used a whole lot down here, but it gets used, I know in Kentucky and Indiana, marriage takes three. It takes three people. Well, let me rephrase it. It takes three. It takes the husband, the wife, and God. You see, it needs three people. If you take one person out of that, you got an issue. You see, you got to have both. You got to have all three in that marriage covenant. Verse 10 says, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. Don't slack off. Again, Do it with thy might. For there is no work, no device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. You're going to die. Work hard is the point. You're going to die. Work hard. Don't be lazy. Again, this is in reflection to life with God. Work hard. Verse 11, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill, but time and chance happeneth to them all. In other words, a wise man may not always have food. He may be wise. He may be wise in terms of, again, righteousness. Wise before God. He still may go hungry. There's people that are righteous that go hungry, you see. He continues on, the race is not to the swift, the battle to the strong. Think about this for a moment. If you go back to the Old Testament, let me phrase that. Back further in the Old Testament, to all those times when armies outnumbered the Israelites. What happened? They got destroyed, you see. And matter of fact, time and chance sometimes it works the same way. These were destroyed because of God's hand. However, here, if a person has a decent strategy, they can win a war even though they're outnumbered. You see, that can happen. It has happened from time to time. He continues on then, again, neither bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding. There's poor wise men, wise people, good righteous people that are poor. They don't have anything. He continues on, nor yet favor to men of skill. Someone can be the best person on the job site for any position you can think of. They can be skillful. They can be, for example, let's use maybe they work for a company and they have good management skills. And they could be the best manager that company comes. What does the company decide they're going to do, though? Hire the boss's nephew. Hire the boss's son. You see, time and chance happens there. You see, just because someone is skilled doesn't mean they're going to get that favor. And so again, time and chance happeneth to them all. Good happens to the righteous. Bad happens to the righteous. Good happens to the wicked. Bad happens to the wicked. You see, time and chance happen to them all. Verse 12 continues, for man also knoweth not his time, as the fishes that are taken in an evil net, and as the birds that are caught in the snare. So are the sons of men snared in an evil time when it falleth suddenly upon them. Again, people may get killed or die out of time and chance, you see. It's not an act of God just because someone dies. Someone dies, well, God killed him. No. Someone survives death. God helped him. Maybe, I don't know. You see, again, it kind of goes back to what he talked about there at the end of chapter 8. Good things happen to the wicked, bad things happen to the righteous sometimes. And that's what he's talking about here. Again, a person may die. That doesn't mean God killed him. That may mean that time and chance happened. Any questions or comments on that? We'll dive more deeply into those 12 verses beginning next week there of chapter 9. I want to thank everyone for your attention tonight.